All right. Peace and love, everyone. Welcome to my channel. If you're new, please like and subscribe. And I'm your host, Queen Tamara. I'm so honored and grateful to be here with you this evening. Gratitude and abundance to you all. I'm so excited for tonight's lecture tonight. It's been a wonderful last few weeks. It's April and the springtime will post the spring equinox, and this is Holy Week for some people. So if you are those persons who are celebrating the Holy Week, blessings to you during this season in your holiday season. And it's just been an interesting time watching spring unfold. Those of you all who know me, you know the spring is my favorite season, and just watching all the beautiful changes and taking place outside. It's just been a great time for me, and I hope each and every one of you are also having a wonderful time as well. And again, thank you for joining me this evening. Please like and subscribe. We're trying to grow our channel and just stay in the flow with everything, learning to stay with the flow, move with the current. So family, tonight we're talking about mind control. What is mind control? And there's a lot of talk about mind control, um somewhat of a hot topic right now because of a lot of the things that have been revealed in the last couple of years, the last year in particular. Things being revealed about some of the things that happened in the celebrity world where people were under the influence of certain substances or being controlled by someone and forced to do certain things um, against their will and against their best interests, and how it had devastating effects for them, and just the level of control that other individuals had over people in the celebrity world, in the music industry in particular, and some other industries. So, mind control and manipulation is a very real thing, and it happens a lot, and so much so that some people are not even aware that it's happening to them, because usually when you are being victimized by someone, your perception is limited so that you don't even see how serious the situation is until you step out of it, if you will. So a lot of times when we're the in a situation that is harmful, you may not see just how bad it is until you step away, and because of the level of control that the abuser or the perpetrator has over you. And sometimes you may not even know that your mind is being controlled and manipulated by someone, because some people have such a clever way of controlling things, controlling the narrative, um cleverly disguising their behaviors, gaslighting, all of those tactics and methods, especially the way of a narcissist. A lot of times the things that they do can keep a lot of people fooled, and they have ways of behaving differently around different people. So sometimes people are not even aware that they are under someone's control. And sometimes when a person's mind is being manipulated or controlled by another, whether it's an individual or a set of beliefs or a society, a government, or whatever, a lot of times they convince you that your thoughts are theirs, and they convince you that um what's right, what's not right. They try to convince you to think the way they want you to think, or they try to convince you to think as they think, so that as you all become almost like one mind. If you've ever seen someone that is in an abusive relationship, or a person that has been subjected to narcissistic abuse or just abuse of anybody that's abusive, controlling, psychotic, or whatever, those persons will um control the other person's mind so much and keep them isolated sometimes from outsiders, from outside help, so much so that they start thinking like their abuser. It's almost like the Stockholm syndrome, where they will think in the best interest of the person who's controlling and abusing them, and not in the best interest in their self. The best interest of their selves would be to run away, sever ties with that person, move forward with their lives, start thinking about themselves and their future, start planning for themselves. But when their mind is manipulated, they start thinking about the other person as them, and start using terms like we, they start speaking French, thinking about that person as if it was an extension of them, and they start doing things for the abuser, and sometimes putting their needs first, being a people pleaser, and diminishing their power and their light, and be so focused and engrossed on what the manipulator or the narcissist wants and what they say, and not what's best for them. And it can come to a point where they actually, they lose their self. Not only do they lose their self-esteem, but they can lose their their willpower, and their like I said, the light becomes dim. That light that we are, each and every one of us is a shining light. And your light can become dim from negativity, from PTSD, from stress or trauma. And when you feel it's dim and you're not activating it, it can become dim to the place where it's like a just a flicker of power and energy. And we don't want to get in that space where another person um that's low vibrating is actually robbing us of our essence and our energy, and keeping us in a low vibrating state, because that's where they want us to be. We don't want to dim our lights, because we are a star and we're very important and valuable. And when we're in our divine, when we're operating from our divine mind, and anyone that is threatened by you and your power and feels that they need to diminish it, or you need to diminish it to make them feel powerful, or make them feel better or more confident in themselves, that is very, very not good and not healthy. So tonight we're going to talk about, are you under mind control and mind manipulation tactics, and things that are going on in and around us. So you got to ask yourself, before we begin, are you under mind control? Are your thoughts your own, or are they the thoughts of others? Are you being told what you should think, do, and feel? How do you know if your mind is being controlled? One way is you need to really get in touch with yourself and tap into your self and your own energy, and know what it is, and get in touch with and get familiar with your energy, and what you're thinking and how you're feeling, versus what others are telling you you should think and you should feel. And there's a lot out there that the dominant culture, sometimes family, sometimes your own personal culture or family culture, co-workers, whoever, those people will sometimes try to tell you how you should feel, try to tell you who you are, tell you what you are, and where you're going where you're going in your life. But really, each and every one of us has our own divine um, blueprint for our lives, our own destiny, our own life path. And another person cannot define that for you. That is your destiny and your decision. And it's defined by the choices that you make, not necessarily what other people say. And, many of us, it's very unfortunate, but many of us have been conditioned to um I want to say conditioned to think like failure, like, some of us set ourselves up for failure because this is the way we were taught. We were taught, and it's very unfortunate, but a lot of people grew up hearing that they would never amount to anything, or they're going to be just like someone else, and that person that they were compared to may have made a lot of mistakes in their lives, may have been um, not in a good space, and so they grow up thinking and being conditioned to think that this is going to be their reality and their destiny too, and it doesn't have to be that way. Remember, as you think, so are you. You are what you think, and you are what you carry into practice. So think, be mindful of the thoughts you're thinking about yourself. So that's the first thing you can do when you want to break the spell of mind control and be operate from a place of your own thinking, is be mindful of the thoughts that you have about yourself. If you've been told things and been given a false reality by someone else, you have to think about that and discard that, because you may have been taught things like, like I said a few seconds ago, about, not amounting to anything, not being a success, being a failure, whatever someone said to you about you. Words carry power. Words are a frequency. They carry and create frequency. So think about what you're hearing and what you're saying, because words can either build or destroy. So if a person is telling you and saying things to you to, harm you or your self-esteem, to diminish your growth and your potential, that is a form of mind control and mind manipulation, because when they say these things to you, what they're really saying is that they are afraid of you stepping into your power, knowing your self-worth, establishing yourself, doing things to make yourself better. Your self improvement in some way makes them uncomfortable, makes them feel threatened, makes them feel afraid, or whatever. And that's the issue that they have within themselves. And instead of them addressing it and working on themselves and doing some self improvement, they're trying to inhibit you and your growth. So keep that in mind when you're dealing with the negative people and the naysayers and the haters and all those kind of folks. Because, and I did another video. I might have been the last one. I talked to you all about, excuse me, the company that you keep, and making a choice, a conscious choice about who and what you surround yourself with, because it has an influence over you and it has an effect on you. And so people who are trying to control and manipulate the narrative and telling you negative things about yourself, and saying negative things, those words come, have power. That is like a poison to you. And I'm going to say it again. People who are always negative and saying hurtful, harmful, abusive things, those are words are like a poison, a contaminant for you, because like words create and they can destroy. And so if they're saying these things, and it's like they're throwing some toxic poison, if you will, for lack of a better term, at you, and that can cause you to be, you to be harmed, you to be hurt. It can cause emotional damage. And many people, especially in the work that I do with healing, many people are suffering and from unhealed childhood trauma and things that were said to them when they were children. And although it wasn't true, it became a truth, or it became a reality for them, because they subscribed to the thing that someone was telling them, especially the adults in their lives that were their caregivers or whatever. So just keep that in mind. Words create and build, and they can destroy. And we got to really be mindful of the words that we use when we're thinking to ourselves, because nobody hears your thoughts and know what's going on inside your head but you're thinking. And the thinking that you're doing, that silent thought, that is also, I call it mind talk. That is also language and talking. You may not say it out loud, but you're thinking it. So if you're always thinking bad things about yourself and repeating negative stuff that someone has said to you, that is a form of mental conditioning and mind manipulation, and that is also unhealthy. So be mindful of what you're thinking and saying in your own mind to yourself. Okay. um be aware of trigger words. Trigger words to me are words that cause a response um, in a person. It can be an emotional response, it can be a spiritual response. Oftentimes, trigger words are things that trigger PTSD or memories of bad experiences. And when we haven't healed from those bad experiences, when we and you hear certain words or certain phrases or certain sounds and it triggers you, it takes you back to that place of fear or that place of trauma where the trauma started. And it causes you to relive that sometimes. And it can keep some people in fearful states and phobic states. It can keep people from progressing and moving forward. So those trigger words are also a form of manipulation, because um, depending on what the situation is, if certain things, certain words trigger you, then it's having it's manipulating and controlling you in a certain way. So until you heal from that, then those trigger words will always trigger something that happened to you that it was painful in the past. So be aware of that how trigger words can control you. Another thing, trigger words can be phrases. Like if you're dealing with a narcissistic person that you're trying to get away from or distance yourself or go no contact with, and then they know just the right thing to say to reel you back in and to make you feel guilty and to gain control over you again. That those are trigger words too. That's how I look at it. Those are trigger words too, because it's triggering a response in you, whether it's emotional or whatever. For example, I had a friend years ago, had a very abusive, traumatic childhood, and a lot of neglect when she was growing up. Her father was extremely abusive. And she ran away from home at some point around age 18 or 19. After years of violent abuse, she left. And she said years later she was talking to her father on the phone, and he told her that she needed to come back. And I was like, you need to come back for what? And he told her, you need to come back because it looks like you won. And this is before I knew what a narcissist was. And I was like, you won what? This is not a game. You fled the home because of the violence, the abuse, the neglect, and then, was always blaming you for the behavior. I said, so when he says it looks like you won what? Like, this is not a race. This is not a game to be won. This is, what you did for your own safety and well-being. But again, when you're dealing with the narcissist, they don't look at it like that. Everything is about power and control with them. And so what he really meant when he said that was, I have lost control over you, and that makes me feel some kind of way and feel bad, and I feel like I've lost. And I feel like other people, are no, because they're always very sensitive what other people think. So you need to come back so that I look like I'm the dominant one and I'm the one that's in control. She didn't fall for it, thank goodness. But that's an example of trigger words too. And also trigger words are words that elicit any kind of response from us, and that like a reaction without thinking. Like many people hear, oh, something traumatic in the news media or social media, and they instantly have a response to it before they even think about what is being said to them, who is saying it, and why. So those are also trigger words, and that is also a form of mind manipulation. Pay attention to everything that's going on around you. Even when you can't pay rent, pay attention. Pay attention, pay attention, stay focused and sharp and crystal clear about everything that is going on around you so that you won't be triggered and deceived by others. So they can throw any kind of words out there, words like inflation and job loss and some other words that I'm not going to use on YouTube right now, but words that have been banned in this somewhat in this present administration. They'll use words and um, say things to make you react from a place of fear or from a place of feeling lack or longing or something, or oh, I got to go and do this before this happens. If I don't do this, I'm going, this is going to happen. If I don't go vote, then the wrong person is going to be in office. If I don't do this, I'm going to miss out. All of these things, those are also trigger words and forms of mind manipulation. Pay attention, think about, and then pay attention to how you feel when you hear a trigger word. Does the trigger word trigger fear, anger, anxiety, um, you know, a sense of lack, a loss of control? What is it that is making you feel, and what is it triggering in you? And pay attention to that. And those are things that you probably need to address for healing. What is it triggering? Is it triggering guilt? The abusers and the narcissists, they can only pull on you and control and manipulate when you have some kind of feeling, like feeling of guilt or feeling of sadness, or when you have low self-esteem, and they know that. And so they will use those things to control and manipulate you. Like, they'll physically assault you and then say something like, oh, you're not going to call the police, are you, on me? But well, what's going to happen? What about the children? What about this? What about that? What about my mom? She's sick. It would kill her if I go to jail. What about, they say these kind of things which will trigger a feelings of guilt or remorse, or whatever is going to trigger in their victim. But that is something that they use to manipulate and control the situation. And then they can only do it when they know it's going to elicit a certain type of response from you. So if you don't have any emotional attachment to what others are saying, if you are in a healed place, then the trigger words cannot trigger you. So always keep that in mind when how you feel when you hear certain things, and do you respond instantly without thinking and without analyzing what is being said to you and why. Always ask why. Always ask why. That, remember that phrase, why ask why. Ask why. When people say and do things, or whenever anything is being said or done, what's the why behind it? What's the reason? Are you the kind of person that just follows things because it's the group think? The group think is the dominant thought processes, or the dominant belief system that others follow or subscribe to, that's a part of groups that you belong to. For example, in my culture, a lot of people may have misconceived notions about what I think and believe because they see other people that look like me or that are associated with me that do certain things. That's that group thing, instead of finding out what it is that, each individual thinks. And everybody doesn't do the same thing. Um, there some people just go along to get along. Some people follow traditions because that's what's expected of them, or that's what's demanded, or because everybody else does something and they don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to be the black sheep. They don't want to do things that are different. They a lot of times people will go along with something just because um everyone else does it or is expected, and they don't want to cause any conflict. And so they'll find themselves doing things that don't make sense, at least don't make sense to themselves. You're not being true to yourself if you are going along with the group thing just because everybody else around you is telling you, oh, you should do X, Y, and Z, doesn't mean that you should do it, even if it's something that people near and dear to you are doing. If it doesn't make sense to you, it doesn't make sense. If you think it's wrong, it's wrong. If you feel free to speak up for yourself and stand up for yourself and assert your autonomy. You have a beautiful brain. You have a shining spirit and soul, and you have a right to stand up for and speak up when you think something is not right or doesn't make sense. Don't go with the flow and just do what everybody else does, because that can be detrimental for you. And also, if people are expecting you to subscribe to a certain group think or a certain belief system because everyone else is doing it, or everyone in your family is doing it, or whatever, that's another form of mind manipulation and mind control, because no one can control your mind, should control your mind but you. And you don't just do something that doesn't make sense to you and doesn't feel right in your heart and in your spirit, just because everyone else does it and this is expected. Okay, a lot of times we find ourselves under mind control because you are afraid of what others will say if you don't go along with what others are doing. Okay, that is common trait of people pleasers and people who feel inadequate in some way, and they feel like they got to prove themselves or they want to fit in. And we are social beings. We are social beings. However, we should not do something just because the dominant group or the group think says it's good or is right. And a lot of adults give in to peer pressure just like children do. There's something I have noticed since I've been an adult that no one ever told me when I was growing up. All the advice that I got from all the adults I grew up around, at school, church, family, in the streets, television, media, whatever. No one ever said to me what I'm about to tell you all, and I had to figure it out on my own. The same people you went to elementary school or school with are the same people that you're going to be around as an adult. Adult life is just like school and elementary school. You got your bullies, you got your teacher's pets, you got the children who are will smile and talk to you, but when they're around other people, they're talking bad about you. You got the people that's cheating on your spelling test, pretending to be your friend because they want to know what you got in your lunchbox, or so they can extort, your lunch money or whatever. You got people who are gonna act like they like you and love you today, but next week they talking bad about you, and they got a whole new set of friends and don't want to talk to you anymore. The same kind of people. It's the same thing. You're going to find it over and over again. The bullies, the popular people, the people who like to keep stuff going. It's the same thing in adulthood that you're going to see, that you saw in childhood. It doesn't change that much. We get older, we get more mature, some of us, but the behaviors, don't change that much. Welcome, Bruce Lee. Yes, indeed. So you can bear witness. You can bear witness that this is the same thing. And just because everybody else does something, I don't care if it's your family or whatever, or your culture, it doesn't mean that you should do it too. And don't let people bully you or make you afraid of what's going to happen if you speak up for yourself or assert yourself. Now, um, I'm not saying go out there and be a rebel without a cause, but just be clear and focused on what your belief system is, what your morals and your principles are, and what you will and will not allow. And do not let people infringe and violate your boundaries. When you say no, it's no. When you say you're not doing certain things, then you're not doing it. And don't let people pressure you, whether they are well meaning or not. Don't let them pressure you into doing things that you know is not for your best interest and your highest good, that you don't want to subscribe to. And another thing I noticed, that when it comes to the mind manipulation, you know how people say everybody has an opinion, but for some reason, when some people express their opinions, it's a problem. But when other people do it, you suppose they think their opinions are facts. So are you the kind of person that's easily swayed by others' opinions and ideas? If so, why don't you have opinions and ideas of your own? And then if you're around people who are abusive or domineering or narcissistic, they may not value your opinions and ask you for your ideas. And they may try to gaslight you or patronize you or say condescending things when you express your opinions or how you feel. But you have an opinion and you have a right to your opinion, just like they do. And there are a lot of people out there who don't seem to know the difference between opinion and effect. And so that makes interesting conversations. But again, you have yours as well. And if not, then maybe you should do a little bit more self educating, so that you can have your own opinions about certain things, so that you know what you stand for. With not knowing what you stand for, you will fall for anything. So what is it that you think about certain situations, certain policies, agendas, etc.? What is it that you think? What are you doing to educate yourself and to elevate your mind, so that you have an opinion, or so that you have a stance on certain things? That way you are standing in a place of power, and you know what how you feel and where you stand on certain topics and certain agendas. And so that you won't be swayed by others. Many of us will succumb to the groupthink and the emotional or verbal bullying or pressuring from others, because we are not strong in our own opinions, and we're not strong in our own principles. That is something that you and only you can work on for yourself, so that you know who and what you are and what you stand for. Okay. When it comes to manipulation, be aware that when someone is manipulating you and using you, they're doing it for their own selfish needs. They may try to make you think that it's for the best, it's for your good, or it's for both of you or all of you or whatever, but they're doing it for their own needs. So if someone is pressuring you to do something, or to think a certain way, or if they're insisting that what they think and what their opinions and are or whatever is more valuable than yours, or if they're trying to sway you a certain way, you need to ask yourself, what is their motive and why? If they're trying to pressure you, like, let's say you go into a store and somebody comes over to you and they try to pressure you to buy something. I can't stand it. They try to pressure you to buy something, and If you're not interested, you say, no, thanks, I'm not interested. And they keep trying to tell you why you should get it. To me, that is manipulative because if I've already said, no, I'm not interested, no, I'm just looking, I'm not buying anything today, or I'm just, that's not my style, that's not my flavor. I don't care for that. And then they start trying to convince you why, what's their motive? Are they benefiting you? Ask yourself, are they, it's not selfish to ask that. Are they benefiting you with this? If not, then you need to make a decision. Is this what you want? Are you going to stand up for yourself? Are you going to say no? Are you going to have the courage and the self-respect to walk away or say no to it? When they try to convince you of things and say things like, don't you trust me? Or, don't you think that I'm helping you, or whatever it is they say, because they got so many ways to manipulate you or try to convince you of something that you don't need or you shouldn't be doing. Always think, what are they trying to do and why? Why? There's that word again. Why? Why are they trying to get you to do something that you feel goes against your principles or goes against your nature or whatever? Why are they trying to use you and for their own selfish needs? Because that's what they're doing. So keep that in mind also when it comes to mind control. Um, if you look around society, you'll notice that so many people are doing the same things, dressing the same way, talking the same, you know, um, behaving like sheeple, the psyops, whatever you want to call it, and it's all around us. It's all around us. Like um, yesterday I saw a video about something, that a phenomenon that took place. I know this is way back. It took place when I was a very, very young child. There was a dog called the Cabbage Patch Kids. And I don't know how many people remember that, but I remember I was like really little, maybe about 5, 6 years or something like that. And my, parent announced that we were going to get one. And at the time, I didn't really know what it was, but it was popular and it was something that a lot of people wanted, adults. And now keep in mind it's a child's toy, but a lot of people wanted this toy for some reason. And there was a store that was selling them, but limited, one per child, like one per family. So somehow we managed to get them, and it was all exciting or whatever, the new doll or whatever. But there were people, I saw something, on social media yesterday with like a document, like a short video from years ago, and adults were fighting in the stores over this toy. Now this is a toy for a child. Why are grown-ups fighting over it? I mean, that right there, there's some mind manipulation. Something's going on right there that's just not just not adding up, because the doll is, it's a toy. It's not going to pay any of your bills. It's not, it's not going to feed you, and it's for children. So as an adult, why are you fighting over it and pushing each other to get the last ones? And what message does that give children? We tell children, wait in line, take your turn, stand in the line, you're not the next person. We tell children, be patient, there's no pushing, no hitting. But here's this video footage of adults pushing each other to get into the store to get this doll, pushing each other, just what does that say? Also, in more modern times, you know many of us have digital devices such as phones, iPads, tablets, or whatever. And sometimes when new ones come out, people will rush out to get one, and especially if you already have one. I could see if it's something new technology. Yes, that's exciting. Um, but if you already have something similar, or why do you feel the need to get the newest, the latest thing that just came out? And a lot of people say, oh, because I heard, and they'll start with what someone else told them. is that a form of mind manipulation? And if you watch um, advertisements or listen to them, you'll notice how they will try to convince you why you should purchase this product or use this service or this product. You know, all of this is a form of mind control. And what is it doing to your mind? You know, you have to ask yourself, do you really need this thing that someone else is telling you that you need? You know, and why are they telling you that? Is it because they want it? Is it because, you know, they're trying to convince you of something? So always be aware of the subliminal suggestions, the messages, the not going along with the group think. Don't be a part of the group of the flock of the sheeple. Don't be in that group. You know, pay attention, pay really good attention to what's going on around you. And if you notice, you will start to see the subtle changes and the just, I don't want to say it's always well, you can say it's a psyop, but whatever is going on, you'll notice that many people are doing the same thing without really properly thinking and analyzing and questioning why. They just do. And that is not the kind of people that we want to be, especially as we are creating our new earth. We want to be intentional. We want to be making decisions and thinking from a place of power and not a place, um, not from a place of fear and low vibrating. And you know, this is something that many of us have to work on because we're taught to think a certain way, you know, and it's based on your culture, you know, your traditions, your folk ways, your societal norms. But at a time in your lives, particularly when we become adults, we must stop and ask ourselves, what do we think, believe, and feel? You know, are and ask yourself, are you being programmed? Are you being controlled by someone else? If so, then who? You know, do you respond to things that others tell you? Do you consciously think about what you're being told before you have a response? But you know, all of this you need to think about and really ask yourself and be aware of your, you know, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and how things make you feel. And if it's for your highest good, always keep that in mind, because a lot of times, like I said, we do things out of obligation, or we're guilted into doing things, or we do things because we don't want to look like the odd one or the black sheep, or you know, we don't want to be isolated and avoided or distanced from the rest of our community or family, or you know, work co-workers or whatever, and we want to be you know, go with the flow. And sometimes, yes, that's fine, you can go with the flow, you can, you know, swim with the rest of the dolphins or whatever. But there are also times when you have to make a decision on your own, if this or whatever it is for your best and your highest good. You know, you have to think about that. It's great to be a part of a group if the group is benefiting everybody and not just the people in power. You know, you got to ask yourself these questions and be aware of what is being said, what you're being told, and why. So I hope all of this was helpful advice. Thank you, Bruce Lee, for joining and for your support. I really appreciate you. And anyone out there who's listening, you know, thank you so much. I appreciate the positive feedback and the appreciation from each and every one of you. Let's continue to focus on knowledge of self and getting to know our divine selves, because that's the true essence of who we are, and allow that to be your guide. So remember, family, we have inherited a lot of unhealthy habits from the past. So always be forgiving and go easy on yourself. You know, you are clearing thousands of years of outdated conditioning as you move into this next chapter of your life and you begin to make decisions from a place of your divine mind. So, with that said, I want to thank each and every one of you all. I hope to see you all next week, the next live. Love, peace, prosperity, good health, and freedom to you all. Peace and love.